Do you know a little bit the history of the temples? The first traveling one, the temporary one, which was built in the Mishkan, the tabernacle as it's called, which was built by the Jews while wandering in the desert. And then the first temple, the second temple. So, as I said yesterday, that this is a time where we study the laws and history about the temples. I want to introduce today a little bit some historical facts which I think are of interest. But before this, let us first say thank you to Hashem and pray to Hashem. Too many soldiers are falling. There's too much pain, too much suffering. Time for you to build already the third Beis Hamikdash. Mizmor l'soida, rila adonai kol haaretz ivdos adonai b'simcha. Boi lefanav b'nona duka adonai u'limu asanu v'la nachnam v'tchem marisai. Boi yishor b'soida chatzroisa b'sila hoida levachu shmoy ki toiv adonai le'lam chazdoi v'yadoi v'doi amun asoi. And let's give some charity together with the prayers for the hostages, all of them to be returned, and all of us who are hostages in this exile. That would be very appropriate today, the 19th day of the month of Tammuz. So let us first look in the Torah. There's a biblical command where the necessity of building a temple for God. As Rambam says, and I will quote you the Rambam's statement, mitzvahs haseh is a positive commandment, lasses bais Lashem, to build, to make a home, a house for God, muchan lias makrivim boy karbonos, ready to be able to bring their offerings. And v'chogeging molav shalosh pam b'shana, and that's where we celebrate 3 times a year, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, where we're supposed to ascend there. Shenema, because the pasuk says, "V'osu li migdosh," you should build for me a sanctuary. And the Rambam continues, the Mishkan Shasem Moshe Rabbeinu, and the Torah already goes into details about the Mishkan, the tabernacle that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, built in the desert. But you should know, this was only a temporary structure, Shenema, because the Torah says, Ki levosem ad oto, because you have not come so far, you haven't come yet to your ultimate place where you will be permanent. So as I just said, the very first Mishkan tabernacle was built as called as a Ohel Moed, tent of meeting. And this was, the whole structure was a very temporary type of a structure to be able to assemble and disassemble throughout their journey, the 40-year journey in the desert. And wherever they went, they set it up and they dismantled it. In fact, it was a place that was less than 24 hours, yet they put it up and they traveled further after that and they dismantled it after that. But then, when after 40 years they came into Eretz Yisrael, Yeshua led them into Israel. So first they set up the Mishkan, again this temporary structure, in a place called Gilgal. And there they were for 14 years. That was the time where they were acclimating themselves to live in a new land. And they were engaged in the conquest and the division of the territories. After those 14 years, they established a little bit more permanent Mishkan, and that was in Shiloh. The difference was the roof was the same covering as they had in the past, but the walls, instead of being made out of wood poles, this was made out of fixed stone walls. This one stood for 369 years, but eventually was destroyed by the Philistines. Seems suffering from the Palestinians is nothing new. Although the Palestinians are not the Philistines, that's besides the point. After the destruction of Shiloh, they moved to the city of Nob. Then it was destroyed and went to Gibeon, and these 2 places stood for a total of 57 years. Then the Rambam continues. Once the Beis Hamikdash was built in Jerusalem, then you could not have any more private little altars. Everything had to be done in the Beis Hamikdash. And as we know, the first temple was built by Shlomo Melech. It was prepared by King David. But since King David was a warrior, God said, it is your son, Shlomo, which is a man of peace, a man of perfection, Shlemus. He will be the one who will build it, but it's going to be in your merit. In fact, the doors didn't open until David HaMelech's name was invoked. So the first temple stood for 410 years, unfortunately destroyed by the Babylonians. And then the second temple stood for 420 years. Now we are waiting the third one that is going to be the eternal one. And may this happen today.